just utter destruction to end wild card weekend with the Los Angeles Rams advancing over the Minnesota Vikings with the 27-9 win. And did Sam Darnold turn into a pumpkin? Deion Sanders, the Cowboys, a whole lot more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. And welcome to the new listeners. Please hit the thumbs up, the like, let us know that you're there, and subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you are listening to the audio version of this podcast. And by the way, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, as mentioned, that is the best place to get your mailbag questions in this week, whether you want to talk NFL playoffs or NFL draft, offseason free agency, coaching carousel. Hit us up with those questions for this week's NFL mailbag at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or drop a question in the YouTube comments. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Wow. The Vikings, 14 regular season wins, and then one and done. They were playing for the 1 seed a week ago, and they are now out of the NFL playoffs after such a phenomenal season for the Minnesota Vikings. 14 wins in the regular season, and 27-9. This game wasn't really close. And the 1 point, Matt, in this game that I really think, and look, Darnold was bad. There were sacks, there were interceptions early in the first half. The last few minutes of the first half is really where this game ended for me, and it was such a telling play in this game. The Minnesota Vikings on third down, I think Darnold hit Hawkinson a little short of the stick, so it was 4th down and 2. They line up to throw, and Darnold was bad, and everyone was yelling at their TVs, and everyone was tweeting and TikToking, whatever they're doing on social media, Facebooking about Sam Darnold. Throw the ball, Darnold. Throw the ball, Darnold. And while Darnold wasn't good in this game at all, he was in fact pretty bad, especially early, and really was a big part of why the Vikings got in this hole that they never even showed any opportunity to dig out of. But on that 4th down play, you can't put that one play on Darnold, and that's what I come back to with this game, because the quarterback was bad, but everybody around the quarterback was bad too. So how do you get better if your defense can't stop the other team's offense, and especially in the first half, and you can't protect your quarterback, the quarterback's playing bad on top of it, and you can't even stay on your feet and get open on routes? Because on that particular play, the play was designed to go to Justin Jefferson, the go-to guy for the Vikings, who had 5 catches for 58 in the playoff game, which is not what you want to see. Darnold drops back to pass. He's looking for Justin Jefferson, number 18, that should be open. He trips on his route, gets tripped up. So then Darnold goes to look to his next read, and then the Vikings can't pick up a stunt, and there's a defender in his face. Like, that play you can't put on Darnold, but it was so telling to me, because even when it wasn't Darnold's fault, they still had nothing on the Rams. The Vikings could do nothing and had no answers in this game. So put a big check mark next to Sean McVay, who completely and thoroughly outcoached his football team against Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings. And yeah, Darnold was bad.
Yeah, well said. And more and more, I think McVay might be the best coach in the league. I mean, they went 9 years without first-round picks. They reinvent their run game time and time again. I'm sure even at this point, a lot of our listeners can't tell you who's on the back 7 of that defense.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really impressive. And Stafford as well. Like, when he's hot and they're rolling, and I know his numbers didn't blow anyone away, he's pretty awesome. I mean, I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC. He was carving up a defense that's hard to play against. But congrats to the Rams. Cool environment with all the LA fires and the moving, and the Bidwell family gives them the jets to open up the doors at Arizona, division rival. I thought all that was really cool and classy. But I think we have to focus on the Vikes, like you said, basically. And everyone's going to talk about Darnold. And it's concerning because these are some things we saw early in his career, not handling pressure well, not having answers, not getting the ball out in time often. But I also think over these last 2 weeks, I think he's a phenomenal coach, but O'Connell didn't give him a lot of answers either and didn't help with protections all that much. And the loss of Darisaw early in the year is showing up in a big way. The O-line's not great either. And I think it's a collective effort, but everyone's going to blame Darnold,
Yeah, and as is the case, the quarterback is going to get a lot of the blame and a lot of the credit, and that is definitely going to be the case here. And for sure, Matthew Stafford outplayed Sam Darnold. I mean, the Rams won 3 second-half points. This game was over at that moment that I just mentioned. That play was the end of the football game because the Rams went down and scored at the end of the half to, instead of being a potentially. That could have been a 17-10 game with the Vikings getting the ball in the second half, a 7-point game, a 1-score game. And instead it was a 2-score game. And then I think the Vikings just punted it right back. They might have kicked a field goal in that first drive. I can't remember of the second half, but field goals weren't going to get it done. 27-9 was the final here. And the Rams just put it in cruise control in the second half of the game. And it does seem like things kind of spiraled for Sam Darnold where, there's the famous thing and, everyone's making the meme jokes about him seeing ghosts, but I think he is sort of a player that if he's playing confident, you see that in him and he can make some big time throws and some big time plays and it can really go the other way. And he's susceptible to things kind of spiraling in a bad way for him and second guessing himself and then not getting rid of the football and, pressure and, everything just kind of mounts up and really the Vikings had no shot in this game. And, I go back to the quote. We talked about it when we were making our picks was the famous quote, and I had to look it up and I got it now. The famous quote is from Orson Scott Card in the book Ender's Game. I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know is kind of score right now for Sean McVay versus his protege, Kevin O'Connell, who coached under him.
Yeah, the Padawan still needs to learn a little bit, Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think is the takeaway here. Now, I know in the second segment, we'll talk about Darnold's future, what do the Vikings do, all that kind of stuff. But overall, I still think there's really good vibes in Minnesota. Like some of these teams have successful years and they don't end well. Most team seasons don't end well. Like my Steelers, a lot of 5-game losing streak. Everyone wants to burn down the facility. That I get. This I don't. Like I don't want to hear malice about the Vikings because you lost in Detroit and to the Rams both handily. There's still a lot of good things going on with this organization.
And they only lost to 2 teams this year.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, right.
Lost to the Rams twice. How
you lost McVay twice and Detroit twice. Yeah. That's pretty good.
If you don't remember, it was Thursday, October 24th, a Thursday nighter at Los Angeles, 30-20. The Rams defeated the Vikings, and that was the back-to-back losses because they were the Vikings were undefeated. Remember, they were 5-0 going into week 6 bye. Then week 7, they lost against Detroit at home and lost back-to-back games against Detroit and Los Angeles, and then won another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 straight, and then came back or 7 straight, 9 straight. Sorry, not doing the right math. Yeah, so 5 straight and then 9 straight, and then lost back-to-back games again to Detroit and then Los Angeles. Wild.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, so, okay, the 2 of the best teams in the league that are still alive and elite coaches and great rosters and great quarterbacks beat you. Okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board, and can we get over that hurdle? It's possible,
I want to talk a little bit more about Darnold, J.J. McCarthy, the Vikings a little bit next. But first, I want to bring up the Rams, and big credit to Sean McVay, obviously, for coaching this football team, and Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator as well, had a good plan. He didn't blitz a ton, but the right pressures at the right time against the Vikings. They just had a really good plan offensively and defensively for the Vikings. And Les Snead for putting together a young defensive line, which is the biggest difference in this football team, because Stafford's still Stafford, and Kupp and Nakua and Kyron Williams, and they put together an offensive line that is functional there, and you kind of knew where their offense was going to be, but the big question was defensively. and guys like Akella Witherspoon, who we both have played for teams that we both covered. And he's right. You're like, okay, we're cool because Akella Witherspoon's going to shut down Justin Jefferson. We got that matchup, right? That's not the expectation coming in. But the young front four and then a really no-name kind of back seven played lights out in this football game. And it's been a big reason why the Rams went from being a team that we thought they were going to have a fire sale when they were 1-4. Like they had the very opposite start to the season, their first 5 games than the Vikings did. And all of a sudden started rattling off wins. And I still wasn't a believer coming into this week, but my God, they're playing good football.
Really are. And I think they can hang with anyone. I'm not predicting them to win the Super Bowl, but the numbers really show when the Kua, Kupp, Williams, and Stafford are all on the field, it's like a top 2 or 3 offense by EPA or DVOA or whatever. When you have all your dudes and they're humming, and that's pretty darn good. And like you said, they're overachieving in the back seven. The defensive line is really good. I don't think it's a cute story that they, like, oh, that's kind of nice. They put some rookies together and it's working okay. No, takes over games. I mean, it is that Turner and Verse in particular are the straws that stir the drink. And it's easy to forget. I mean, Aaron Donald you lost Aaron Donald, and you still have you might have better D line than you had last year.
I think they're playing better than they did last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, right.
And who knows, maybe Aaron Donald comes out of retirement to help this run continue down the stretch. A lot of fans are talking about that. I'm sure he could come out off the couch and give the Rams a little bit of a boost if he wanted to. How insane would that be? Jared Verse is an animal. The way he plays,
he's an animal. Yeah.
So, and there was some, flaws in his game, and wondered about his bend, but his bull rush is amongst the best in the league already, and just the way he plays. Like, find yourself guys that play like that on defense, and you'll be all right. So good on the Rams for what they're kind of rebuilding on the fly there, and ahead of schedule potentially on their retool as they go into the divisional round. A peek of the divisional round. A note on the Steelers and Sam Darnold. Has he officially turned into a pumpkin? What's next for the Vikings? Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by TurboTax. A message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes, as we're waiting and we're wondering and worrying about our taxes, if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now TurboTaxes are matching you with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. That's right, today at TurboTax. An expert who gives you taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return. While you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything you need with 100% accuracy. So all you got to do is sit back and get the most money guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com. That's TurboTax.com/guarantees. So Sam Darnold, let's close the book on the Minnesota Vikings here. Did Darnold play bad enough the last 2 weeks to change the complete plan the Vikings might have had at quarterback this offseason? And in your opinion, did Sam Darnold turn into a complete pumpkin? And in your opinion, Matt, did Sam Darnold lose, potential $50 million per year contract, as some people are saying right now?
It's a tough one. So let's start with what Darnold will. Let's start with the Vikings, I guess, because I've gone back and forth on this, and I really thought 2 weeks ago that he had done enough that I don't know how you go away from him. It sends a bad message to the locker room. And a big thing I harped on is, especially if he wins a playoff game, I think you have to roll it back. Now, he didn't, I mean, and then that wasn't a qualifier. He didn't have to check that box, in my opinion. But I think there's one thing we can't, forget about here is these teams put together big picture financial plans, and they are, they're operating under the big picture plan of having a rookie contract at quarterback for the next 4 years or so. You don't make that pick and be like, well, we didn't plan on putting an addition on our house. We don't have the extra $300,000 to do it, but we're going to do it anyways. You know what I mean? Because we have things tied up in our vehicles and kids' college and blah, blah, blah. Like it's kind of like a home where you figure out your economic plan and, well, we were only allocating X amount to quarterback, and that means we can pay Jefferson and we can play Darisaw and maybe we can go get a corner in free agency or whatever it is. And so I think it takes a lot for an organization to go off their financial plan, you know, and I'm not sure Darnold did enough to do it. And even franchising and trading him ties up a lot of money that it'd be wonderful to get a pick out of him more than a future third, you know, I mean, in the comp world. But I tend to think he'll probably hit free agency. And really looking at this landscape, though, I think he's still going to get paid. I mean, I still think he'll get a Mayfield-like contract at worst. The Raiders, or one of these teams that's not picking in the top 2 or 3 that is really needy, I think will probably overspend. And I'm not saying they'll regret it, but I think that he'll be pretty happy financially when it's all said and done. You know, he had a good year.
He's done enough the last 2 years rehabbing his image to be one of the few quarterbacks that exist in the NFL that are in the middle class, where you get a deal that's not a 1-year stopgap, $10 million a year deal. You get a little more dollars, you get a little more years. It doesn't completely hamstring the team to go other directions at the position if they end up wanting to over the next 2-3 years or something like that. And I think I'm right there with you. And I was a little skeptical of Darnold getting the $50 million a year thing that people were talking about anyway, just because there's still a lot more bad Darnold tape in the NFL than good, as well as he played this year. And I do think he probably lost some money the last couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah.
And I do think that when it comes to the Vikings, he's for sure going to hit free agency, because for the Vikings, if teams were clamoring for him that hard and willing to give him top of the market money as a free agent quarterback, then that means they're willing to give up other resources to the Vikings for it. If you're talking about a middle-class quarterback as a starter in the NFL, which there are not that many, and I'm sure some teams are going to want Sam Darnold to be their week 1 starter potentially next year, whether or not they're drafting a guy behind him or not. I think doing a guy dirty in the NFL is still a pretty big deal for a lot of teams. And if you get a second round, if you think you can squeeze a second rounder, an earlier third in trade by tagging and trading him, I just don't think it's worth it for the Vikings either. And you're kind of doing that player dirty who came to you on a short-term deal to rehab his image. He held up his part of the bargain to become a free agent, and you're going to kind of hold him hostage. I just don't see that happening. So I do think that 100% chance now, and it makes this a lot easier decision for the Minnesota Vikings. They already had their plan. J.J. McCarthy is going to come back, be the guy. Daniel Jones maybe is the veteran backup to help push him and help him along there and help rehab his image potentially in sort of a year or two behind where Darnold is in his career. And Sam Darnold hits free agency and then signs a contract with, say, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know,
right.
Somebody out there who might be looking for a veteran upgrade at quarterback and have some other plans. In the meantime, I want to go to the Steelers note that at Williamson NFL put out here.
Real quick before you do, I mean, I think you said it right about Darnold. And what's that saying about like relationships and love? If you love me, set me free or whatever. Yeah. I think that's kind of what it is with Darnold. But maybe I'm just throwing these two teams out there. Maybe the Giants and Raiders would be interested. You know, they can't get a guy in the draft, but maybe they look at it and be like, I don't know if our O-line's good enough to do it now. You know, where a month ago you'd just be like, I'm in. Where now it's like, pressure's always bothered this guy. Do we have the line that can handle the protection that can handle such an investment? Maybe we're out now. You know, one of those teams.
The Giants are interesting, and we'll talk a lot more about this as it pertains to the draft, because the Giants are a team that you're trying to hang on. You have one shot at this as GM and head coach there right now. John Mara sat there with cameras and said, yeah, their time is running out. Like, that was the weirdest thing, by the way, that I've seen in a long time, is the ownership basically letting everybody know how hot, like, by far, number one power rankings of hot seat coaches in the NFL is Brian Daboll and the Giants going into next year. Like, that's exactly what the owner said publicly about why he didn't fire him, but they better do something quick. So you're not going to draft a rookie quarterback. You're not going to draft Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward and under those circumstances, if you if you're the New York Giants. So they're going to try to get the best veteran quarterback they can and try to save their jobs. Like that's the only way the Giants, I think, can go about this thing. And so maybe Sam Darnold, who a lot of people thought they should have drafted at quarterback instead of Saquon Barkley in 2018 too. Maybe they can, maybe that all comes full circle now. Barkley no longer there. Maybe Sam Darnold comes back. But at the same time, you think to yourself, how much different is Darnold in that offense versus what Daniel Jones was in that offense? So in a lot of ways, I'm looking at the Giants like, all right, let's go spin your wheels for another year. But I'm not seeing the vision. And who knows? Maybe we get Sam Darnold back in New York.
Who knows? One of the teams will bite on him, though. And I understand it.
Raiders, another interesting one. Another interesting one as it pertains to Shadur Sanders. How about Deion Sanders speaking with Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys about their now vacant head coach job? Was that why they wanted to let Mike McCarthy walk? And a note from you about the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they rank among postseason teams in recent history. All that next. This episode, Peacock Williamson, sponsored by Game Time. And man, I love going to live events, love going to concerts, sporting events, comedy shows, theater events, whatever it is near you, you can find those tickets at Game Time. And last year I went to a concert. I've told this story before. One of my favorite old bands from the 90s was playing, and they actually sold out and they added a second night. And so I watched the show the first night. I was like, man, this is phenomenal. I'm going to go to the Game Time app. And if I get a good deal on seats for the second night, I'm coming back. This time by myself, leave the wife at home. The first night is like, you know what? Stay home with little Leo. And I'm going to go back because I got half ticket price concert ticket to see one of my favorite bands. Got to see them back to back. And it was so much fun. Unforgettable experience. And I wouldn't have done it without Game Time. And now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. Filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, especially if you're say going to a football game and you're 60,000 seat stadium. There might be a lot of tickets to sift through, so you don't have to waste time searching through all thousands of tickets at Game Time. Game Time Picks makes it easy, and you can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. This tweet, I believe last night, from @Williamson NFL. And it's kind of shocking, just showing, I think, both how good of a coach Tomlin is, but how
it's good and bad. Yeah.
How much the Steelers, as good as they are still struggling to really get over that hump and become a team that could go actually start getting sized for rings, right? Over the past 5 years, 70 teams have made it to the postseason. Among those qualifying teams, Mike Tomlin's Steelers have ranked 58th out of 70, 64th out of 70, 67th, and 68th in QBR out of those 70 teams. So they've been the bottom 5 or 10, basically. 58 out of 70 was the highest of those for the QB play that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had over those 5 postseasons. First of all, how do you even get to the postseason that many times if you got that right of quarterback play, which is why Tomlin is so good? But man, they got to get better at that position. Is someone like Sam Darnold potentially a guy for that? And how do you get good quick if you're drafting at the back half of the first round every year at quarterback?
Yeah, and these are collective grades. Like that's Fields and Wilson put together. And I think I stole this from Bill Barnwell, to be honest with you. I just cut and pasted it off ESPN. And, you know, that's Pickett, that's Rudolph, that's Trubisky, that's end of career Ben. I mean, there's many guys contributing to that. And they went to the playoffs 4 of the last 5 years with bad quarterbacks. Now, he's harder to defend than ever, to be honest with you. And the whole town wants to fire Tomlin. I mean, everything I post, all the comments were just fire Tomlin, you know. And I get that. But I also believe most coaches don't even get those teams to the postseason. But then you're in purgatory where once again you're picking 21st and you don't really have the method to go get one. And this past year, 2 really easy contracts that cost you nothing fell in your lap, but that doesn't make you compete with Burrow and Lamar and Mahomes, etc. So it's really a conundrum, you know, like, does he contribute to not getting great quarterback play? Probably. He has a lot of say in that building, and he had something to do with drafting Kenny Pickett, which didn't cripple the team, but obviously didn't work out. I mean, he had something to do with Wilson and Fields and Trubisky, but it wasn't like John Elway was walking through the door either, So it's really, there's two ways of looking at it. And right now, after the 5-game losing streak, 90% of my hometown looks at it like that's not good enough. He's only won, this might amaze people. This is he's coached 18 years, and he's only won a playoff game in 4 seasons. Now, one of them was the Super Bowl. And people will be like, but that was Cowher's team. I'm like, yeah, but I couldn't have coached him to the Super Bowl that year. He's had a lot of success with not Cowher guys,
Right. Yeah.
he lucked into Ben. He's overrated from the start. I'm like, no, but he's been there 18 years and his message might be getting stale. And he's still not a great game day coach. And I don't think, they've been, all their playoff losses are getting blown out before you know it. And they're like the worst team in the dance year after year of late. And people are really wearing on that. And I'll be honest, if most of us didn't grow up in the 70s and 80s, we'd probably be happy with it, but it's just, there's a lot of trophies here and the standard's different. Like you get with the Niners,
Yeah. Oh, a ton of that with the Niners. The standard's different for those people who remember watching Steve Young and Joe Montana. And
why aren't we like that every year?
Right. And so it's a different standard. It's really impossible though to watch the Steelers and think that Tomlin's not doing a good job. It's pretty obvious what's happening over there, but you got to
can't convince me he's not a good coach. Like I have people, he's a terrible coach. He's been overrated for a start. I'm like, he's a good coach.
This stat shows exactly how good he is because how many teams have garbage quarterback play and are able to even get into the tournament period. There's teams with good quarterbacks that can't get into the tournament and can't win playoff games. So, but
people just laugh about him. He's never had a losing season. Oh, we get to hear that again. Like that's easy to go 18 straight years without a losing season.
Right.
I mean,
at some point though, you do have to take it upon yourself. Okay, let's do something. Mm-hmm. It seems like they've been like, oh, we're just going to let the league happen to us at quarterback. Oh, this is what we get. Okay. The Kenny Pickett was like the one time, let's take a swing. And it was the worst possible pitch to swing at that you could ever get, right? It was a bad count. It was a bad swing. It wasn't a strike. And it was like, what are you guys doing? And that was really the only shot they took at quarterback since Ben Roethlisberger actually was drafted.
Right.
Before he became the head coach, right? So,
and there's some craziness. I'll tell you, they loved Lamar Jackson coming out, and they considered taking him instead of Edmonds, but Ben didn't have the elbow surgery yet, and they thought that was too early. Always draft your quarterback before you need to draft your quarterback is the lesson here.
The Lamar things too is just the league not it blows my mind because it's so easy in hindsight, but you're waiting for another. I don't know I think we've passed the era of the league not knowing what to do with a quarterback because the two big ones were Mahomes and Lamar Jackson because scouts,
both of whom they had really high grades on. I'll tell you that right now. But they thought Ben still had time, right?
We are on the right side of history. Like I've got tweets I can pull up talking about Lamar Jackson's the number one talent in this draft. If Michael Vick goes number one, how's Lamar Jackson not going number one? I get his release looks a little funny, but Lamar Jackson was a phenomenal thrower of the football. For him to get all the way down to the end of the first round was kind of
pro-style offense with Petrino. Like people think he's just an athlete running around out there not knowing what he's doing.
Freak athlete too. On top of it, it was like this guy's got way too much talent to be sliding to where he did in the draft. But teams just looked at him and was like, it's just a little different, and we don't know what to do with this. And with Patrick Mahomes, and he was kind of a wild stallion. He wasn't the guy we see today in the NFL. And I think not a lot of it, but I think a percentage of Lamar and Mahomes' success, they went into good spots. Like they would not take back where they got drafted. I think
they weren't day one starters either. Like, here, just throw you in the deep end and you'll be fine. Right. It could have gone more.
We looked at him like, we don't know what to do with this guy. The league doesn't do that anymore. And in fact, Lamar has gotten future super athletic quarterbacks drafted higher. And Patrick Mahomes has gotten future quarterbacks that make great secondary plays that aren't that good, like Zach Wilson drafted. Like Zach Wilson doesn't go number 2 overall if Patrick Mahomes hadn't come first.
Right. Not sure Jaden Daniels does if Lamar doesn't come first. Yeah, right.
And so those teams got those guys, and great scouting, great evaluation, great development by those teams. I think we've passed the era of a quarterback prospect coming out with all that talent and teams going like, I don't know what to do with this guy. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. We've already seen him go the other direction with Anthony Richardson and some other quarterbacks that have had a difficult transition. The teams are like, we got to. This is what you need in the NFL now. We got to take a chance on this guy. But
you don't take Pickett and be happy with the leadoff walk.
Yes, exactly.
You come to the plate and you swing for the fences, and you take a quarterback before you need him.
Yes.
You don't wait until Ben's arm falls off and then, we better find a quarterback,
And, you evaluate that DB who's like a really good gunner and you draft him in the 4th round. Is there a developmental quarterback there? Maybe 7th round, even, how many teams passed over Brock Purdy? You kind of a real nice backup to become something more. Right. And so quarterback is important. Develop them and be good and be good behind the guy in front. That's QB1 as well.
So that brings us to our next point real quick. Cause my Steeler partner has been advocating now, send your 1st round pick and whatever else to Dallas for Dak. Dallas then trades to 1 for Shedeur and hires Deion.
Love it. I absolutely.
How about that move? Right.
That is phenomenal. I love the fit. Dak Prescott has like $100 million dead money though, if he gets traded before June 1st. So I think I know when you cut somebody, you can put the designation of post June 1st, even though you cut them in March. Can you do that with trade?
I don't know exactly how that works, but I think
it would have to be something that the teams decide on. But how does that happen before the draft so that the team could use the Steelers pick, but not trade them until after June 1st would be the big
up to 1 to try to get Shedeur with the
yeah.
Or whatever,
And so unless they're able to make it work to where a contract gets restructured.
I don't know. Right.
But it would be fun. It would be fun. It would be a fun scenario. And if you're wondering why we're talking about something so insane, according to Jordan Schultz, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones has spoken with Colorado head coach Deion Sanders about the team's head coaching vacancy, and discussions are expected to continue regarding the possibility of him becoming the next head coach in Dallas. Coach Prime is considered a top candidate, though. The Cowboys plan to interview other candidates as part of the process, per team sources. And there's always been a lot of talk that that Deion Sanders would love to go to the NFL and continue to coach his son. And so you start to look at teams, and obviously he used to be a Dallas Cowboy. The Las Vegas Raiders,
the glamour and the spotlight, and right.
Raiders drafting a little higher might have an opportunity to just naturally draft Shedeur Sanders. A little bit more difficult because you might have to go all the way up to number 1 potentially to get Shedeur Sanders. Is he even worth that? I think it's a little dubious with a college coach just jumping in the NFL just because of how different it is. And I mean, I know Deion Sanders knows the NFL game, but he's not a X's and O's wizard. He's not calling plays on offense or defense. And there's the playing field is the level of the playing field is just a little bit different competitively with college to the NFL. And I'm not sure if the way Coach Prime, as phenomenal as he's done with a couple of college programs here and elevating those, I don't know if it's the right. I wouldn't want my team to be hiring Deion Sanders. Is a good way to put it, but I am interested, and I kind of hope it happens because it would be fascinating to watch, whether it's in Las Vegas or Dallas. So Deion Sanders might be coming to the NFL. Real interesting there.
We'll wrap this up, but I mentioned this to Ross a few days ago. I don't know if you saw Jerry Jones's scene in Landman, the new Paramount show. It's a very good show. I like it. Billy Bob Thornton, whatever. But he's not even acting. He's telling this oil tycoon, he's an oil tycoon. He's basically just saying, you're not on this planet long enough. I bought the Cowboys so I could work with my family. I mean, like, it didn't seem like he was acting one bit at his age. And I just felt like, wow, McCarthy's gone. He's going to hire someone he just wants to see every day. A friend of his, or, Jason Witten's name's been thrown out there in a Jeff Saturday type of move, like crazy.
This toy, like,
right, I'll do whatever I want with it.
Your kids might turn on Madden, run the franchise however they want.
Right.
This is his Madden. This is his video game. He can do whatever he wants with it.
I'm going to hire Prime. You're going to like it. Right. And I'm still going to sell out the stadium.
Fascinating offseason to come. Of course, we've got it covered for you every step of the way with the playoffs. We're going to start looking at the divisional round here this week. Get your questions in, whether it's draft, free agency, coach, playoffs related, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or drop a question in the YouTube comments. Subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.